Alinea is unquestionably one of the best and most important restaurants of the 21st century. It has maintained 3 Michelin stars ever since the guide came to Chicago and has been a pioneer of molecular gastronomy. The establishment serves whimsical tasting menus that play on all the senses. It's also a restaurant that I dreamed of dining at for over a decade, and my dream came true. It's a beautiful summer day today here in the Chicago suburbs, and right now I'm at my parents' house just doing a bit of relaxing in their backyard, but I'd like to talk about the restaurant that I went to this week. The place that I'm talking about is a restaurant that I've wanted to go to for over a decade. Now, I have a lot of restaurants on my bucket list, like Osteria Francescana, El Sala de Can Roca, the French Laundry, but the restaurant I went to this week means more to me than any of those spots. I'm talking about the iconic 3 Michelin-starred Alinea. Of course, I was attracted to Alinea for all the obvious reasons. I mean, it's one of the best restaurants in the world, it's a pioneering spot for molecular gastronomy, but also, it was really like the first Michelin-starred restaurant that I became aware of. Before the Michelin Guide landed in Chicago, I didn't even know what Michelin Stars were, and when the Michelin Guide announced their first stars, it was obviously big news. To no one's surprise, Alinea earned 3 stars, and that's when I learned about the restaurant, and it sounded so damn cool to me. Nevertheless, I set myself a goal that I would one day dine at that restaurant, and this week, I realized that dream. Alinea was everything that I hoped for and so much more, and the real special thing about the dinner was that I got to do it with one of the persons I care most about in this world, my father. So this was my experience at Alinea. Alinea is located on Halsted Street in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood. The restaurant was established in 2005 by Grant Achatz, a chef that I have immense respect for. I really enjoyed learning about Grant through reading his memoir, Life on the Line, which is an excellent book that details his culinary journey from working at the acclaimed Charlie Trotter's to Thomas Keller's French Laundry. The book paid particular attention to how Alinea came about and Grant's battle with cancer. When Alinea opened its doors, it took the culinary world by storm, where it was named as one of the best restaurants in America and one of the best in the world. It was in 2010 when the Michelin Guide announced their first stars for the city, with Alinea earning 3 stars, an honor which it has maintained to this day. As I've said before, I've always wanted to go to Alinea, and my father has as well, so it's quite the surprise when during Christmas of 2023, I unwrapped the most spectacular present of a meal at Alinea. However, since I live and work in New York, dining at the restaurant was something that I had to plan for. When I had time in July, I asked my dad if he was still up for it. He said he was, so I went to make a reservation. Besides the kitchen table, there are 2 main dining experiences at Alinea, the gallery and the salon. I wanted to go for the gallery, which is a lengthier, more immersive, and experimental dinner compared to the salon. Unfortunately, the gallery is by far the most sought-after experience at Alinea, and subsequently, it was completely booked. The salon, on the other hand, offers an innovative tasting menu, but it's just not as unique as the gallery. I was faced with a dilemma. I could wait until the next time I would be able to travel home and try to go for the gallery then, or book the salon. Ultimately, I made reservations for the salon, since I knew we would both still have an amazing evening, and as I said before, any time spent with my parents is precious. Making reservations at Alinea is unique, since you have to pay for nearly everything up front. Subsequently, the 2 spots I got on the salon were $345 each, plus there's tax, and Alinea automatically adds a 20% service charge to the bill, which is basically the tip. I also had the opportunity to choose wine pairings, but one can order beverages at the restaurant, which is what I did. In total, the bill before we actually dined at Alinea was $930.29. Now, one can transfer and reschedule reservations, but they're non-refundable. As a result, I was incredibly paranoid of getting sick in the days leading up to my dinner. On the plane to Chicago, anyone that sneezed or coughed, I thought of them as mortal enemies. I was so paranoid about anything going wrong that I decided to show up to the restaurant with my dad over 2 hours before our reservation. In the meantime, we grabbed some espresso and had some good conversation. My excitement was rising, and soon enough, it was time to head to Alinea. My dream was about to come true. From the outside, you wouldn't know it's a restaurant. There's no sign, and it simply looks like just another building on the block until you step inside. Alinea is 2 floors with the gallery on the first and the salon on the second. Me and my dad were seated upstairs in one of the multiple rooms of the salon. Alinea has a modern and elegant feel with dim lighting and well-spaced tables. What was on our table was interesting, as the components would play a role in our experience, and in fact one of our courses was already before us, but we would find that out later. In the meantime, we were introduced to our server, who explained how our dinner would progress as there was no menu. Then we were greeted by one of the restaurant's sommeliers, who explained the beverage options. My dad doesn't drink, so he was fine with water. While one of the wine pairings would have been nice for me, it was still a bit of an expense, and considering that I wasn't paying for the meal, I wasn't going to put that on my father. Instead, I went with wine by the glass. I discussed what I liked with the sommelier, and he presented me with a glass of the 2023 Lunai Etichetta Nera Vermentino. I thought that it was a wonderful, clean wine with vibrant flavors. As a lone beverage to pair with a wide variety of courses, it did the job. However, one concerning bit is that I ordered it without even knowing its price. I was just hoping that there wouldn't be any unpleasant surprises later when the bill came. In the meantime, we were presented with mother-of-pearl spoons, which I figured meant that our first course had something to do with caviar, which was indeed the case. However, we were actually presented with 2 different caviar courses. My dad's came on a specially crafted plate that he was meant to hold. The idea was that his dish would mimic the look and textural sensations of caviar. My dish, on the other hand, still had quite the visual appeal, as it was presented on a clear, contemporary-style glass plate. Both of our courses contained ocetra caviar, but the makeup of each dish differed. One of them consisted of cantaloupe, chamomile, and chili, while the other contained sweet corn, honey, and oloroso. My first bite was magical.
That is damn good. Salty, sweet.
While the components of our courses differed, the flavor profiles were similar.
Wonderful balance.
Beneath the caviar was a sweet mousse that complemented the salty caviar beautifully. To me, the best caviar courses are the ones on the simpler side, which allow the caviar to really shine. Alinea's version showcased the splendor of caviar while also delivering interesting and spectacular complementary flavors. Next up was one of Alinea's signature dishes, Black Truffle Explosion. The single bite course consisted of an exploding ravioli with black truffle, romaine, and parmesan. Our server told us to keep our mouths closed when we ate it, as the ravioli literally explodes upon taking a bite. Upon eating it, my mouth was flooded with magnificent truffle juices, and I was transported to heaven.
That was sublime. That was really good.
Explosive.
Yeah.
The dish was perfect. It was a 10 out of 10. While the course may be most associated with Alinea, Grant Achatz actually created it at his previous restaurant known as Trio in Evanston, Illinois. Our next course, however, was a true Alinea original known as Hot Potato Cold Potato. The dish was time sensitive, so I only had a moment to get a single clip of it before I popped it into my mouth. Thankfully, Grant covers the dish in detail in the Alinea cookbook, which is certainly a fine work, but not exactly a cookbook for the amateur chef. The course was born out of the idea of keeping 2 temperatures separate until right before a diner would take their bite, hence the unique serving vessel the dish is served in. One would pull the pin containing a hot potato ball, a slice of black truffle, and parmesan. The components would fall into the bowl containing a cool potato vichyssoise. I slurped the concoction similar to how I would slurp an oyster out of its shell. It was extraordinary. Hot Potato Cold Potato was developed in 2006, and it's no surprise why it's still on the menu almost 20 years later. The next course was pretty fun. The tin on our table was open to reveal what looked like sardines, but were in fact slices of eggplant. In addition, we were presented with a sort of buttered rye cracker, along with a bowl of colorful flowers and herbs. It was up to us to fashion our course, which added a level of interactiveness and fun. Simply put, I loved the dish. The eggplant had a remarkable flavor with a slight spice to it.
Yeah, it does have that underlying kick to it. Yeah, it's really pleasant.
Also on the plate was something that I forgot what it was, but it did cover smoked beets, and it was delicious as well. Overall, the course was top-notch, and I loved the sort of surprise it delivered, with the eggplant disguised as something else. Although, I must admit, I knew all about the course, since I follow Grant Achatz on Instagram, and he posted about the dish. Nevertheless, it was a great dish indeed. Before the next course was presented, a beautiful glass centerpiece was placed on our table with no real explanation. We knew, however, that it would play a role in our evening eventually. I appreciated these elements that kept us guessing and made the dinner so much more than a meal, but a journey and an experience like no other. Eventually, we were presented with two different dishes at once. One was a sort of stew consisting of a sauce mango americain with Holland pork belly and spiny lobster. On top of the dish was a spiral puffed sort of cracker. To put it plainly, it was a bowl filled with components that will make one feel so thankful to be alive. Everything was cooked perfectly, and if heaven were a sauce, it would be that sauce mango americain. The cracker was nice on its own, but I also cracked a bit of it up to give some texture to the stew. Overall, that dish was magnificent and was definitely one of my favorites of the evening. Also on the table was a very unique concoction consisting of sea urchin ice cream and macadamia nuts. Yeah, it sounds a bit strange, but it worked. Plus, I really appreciated the look of the serving vessel, which resembled an actual sea urchin. As was evident throughout our meal, Alinea not only takes food to another level, but the presentation as well. Before our next course was presented, our server burned a sort of incense bundle consisted of cinnamon, orange, and thyme that filled the air with a wonderful aroma. The act also related to the next course, labeled as blancmange, as the burning of the incense harkened back to the spice trade of the mid-1200s. In that time, people would often add rare ingredients to dishes to encourage their consumption. At Alinea, the history of the blancmange of the 13th century played a role in their rendition, consisting of a North American bluefoot chicken that is spread out over two plates. On one dish, an artfully crafted rice sheet covered the chicken, plus there was a chicken veloute. First off, the chicken was perfectly cooked, but the veloute was so interesting as it consisted of elements like vanilla and cinnamon. Frankly, I've never had a chicken dish quite like that, and I loved it.
There's a bit of like herbalness into it. That's so interesting.
Also on the table was a skewer of fried chicken paired with a fernet sauce. Just like everything else, it was excellent. I especially enjoyed the fernet sauce, which had such a deep flavor to it.
Oh, really?
In addition to the two plates, we were also invited to partake in the treats on the centerpiece. One of them was a small glass of chilled tea, and it was a true delight.
That's really pleasant.
There was also a Parker House roll filled with foie gras. That was amazing as well.
That was really good. Sweet and savory. It's so good.
Next up was our last savory course of the evening. Before we were presented with our food, our server placed a grater on our table, which made us ponder what it could possibly be used for. I was thinking cheese, maybe truffles, but I was way off. It was actually a form of Niçoise olive, which was shaved over a lamb dish that contained blood orange and eucalyptus. The dish was interesting. It didn't taste nor have the texture that I thought it would.
That's different.
But at that point, I should have known better. I was at Alinea, and I should have expected the unexpected. Everything about that course was delicious. Finally, it was time for dessert, and for that, the table needed to be prepped. A rubber sort of tablecloth was placed over our table as components for the dessert began accumulating along the side. Me and my dad were about to experience one of Alinea's most famous dishes, known simply as paint. It wasn't long until one of Alinea's chefs came to us to fashion the course.
Say lavender snow.
Perfect.
White chocolate.
Excellent.
Watching the dessert being created before our eyes was incredible.
Lavender blackcurrant. Lemon tarragon. White chocolate Russian tea cookies. Blackcurrant zephyr. Lemon tart. Crema Earl Grey ice cream that's been nitro frozen. Lemon glitter.
The result was a stunning, edible work of art. Tableside preparations are nice, but this was on another level as our table served as the damn plate. Now, I've seen so many images and videos of this course being prepared in the past, and I always figured that it would taste good, but at the same time, I thought that the dish mostly became famous for its unique preparation and visual appeal. However, its flavor was extraordinary, and I was blown away. There were so many wonderful tastes and textures that were all supremely balanced. Sprinkled around the table were also delicious pedophores, which were all top-notch. Also, the course was just a lot of fun to eat. I was literally eating off a table in a 3 Michelin-starred restaurant. It goes against all the conventions of manners and proper dining behavior. It's simply impossible to enjoy the course without smiling. However, our last dish gave me and my dad our largest smiles of the night as well as a laugh as we were presented with another iconic Alinea dish known as the balloon. It's an edible, floating, helium-filled balloon made of green apple taffy. We took in the helium, spoke in squeaky voices, and had a good laugh. However, the balloon isn't the most stable creation and can deflate pretty quickly. It was also a little messy, but thankfully our server was quick to bring some hot towels. As I finished up the dessert, I reflected on the evening. My dinner was outstanding. Every single course tasted amazing and the service was second to none. Great food can be found at a lot of restaurants, but what Alinea offers is also an experience like none other. As I said before, dining at Alinea was something that I dreamt of for years. When I was a Chicago resident, I lived in the very neighborhood that Alinea calls home and subsequently have walked in front of the restaurant hundreds of times, fantasizing about the day that I would get to dine there. I was so happy that I was able to share that day with my dad. It made the experience just so much more special. To cap off the evening, we were given menus listing all the courses that we enjoyed. In the future, I would love to get my menu framed as a reminder of the amazing time I had. After finishing, it was time for the bill, which was only $26.32. That's a hell of a deal if you ask me. However, that was just the cost of my glass of wine, since nearly everything was paid for when I made the reservation. In total, the bill actually came to $956.61, which was no doubt expensive, but for me, the memories that I made that evening with my father were priceless. So that was amazing. That was easily one of the best and most memorable meals of my entire life. The food was outstanding. I mean, every single thing was just perfection. When I think of the 10 best dishes that I've had so far this year, I'm thinking most of them would probably come from Alinea. Everything was just so innovative and fun, but most importantly, it was delicious. Alinea is just so much more than just providing their guests with good food. It's about providing a world-class experience. And I'm just so grateful that I got to share that experience with my father. These days, any time that I get to spend with my parents is just so special and precious to me. Now, I still probably would have had a great time with my dad even if we just went to a simple burger restaurant. But the fact that we were at Alinea and having such world-class food made it just so much more special. At the end of the day, Alinea is a restaurant and they create some of the very best food. But a byproduct of the food, the service, and everything the restaurant does for their guests is the memories that are created. This week, Alinea not only gave me one of the best culinary memories of my life, they also gave me one of the best memories with my dad, and for that, I am grateful. For me, Alinea was certainly worth the wait. It is one of the best restaurants in the world, and it was everything that I wanted it to be and so much more. And I certainly hope to be able to dine at Alinea again. It's a special place indeed.